Minor Forest here on 90.7 FM, KALX Berkeley. Still fading out into the background, coming off of a CD called In Independence, the name of that CD. Track called
The Dutch Fist.
And we have the members of A Minor Forest here with us in the studio today. Thank you all very much for scuttling here right after practice.
Thank you. Andee?
Thank you very much for having us.
We are here to talk about A Minor Forest because you are going to be playing at the Bottom of the Hill coming up next on the 9th, I believe is the date, correct?
Indeed.
Yeah. Which is the first time A Minor Forest has played in 15 years.
That's right.
So I guess that would actually be a decent place to start, is why, after 15 years, coming back around.
And the mic gets put in front of... Well, all three of us are sharing one microphone, so there might be some awkward pauses in this interview. But,
or loud squeak noises.
That's a very good question. I don't know if we've ever really fully answered why now. There's talk of it before. Right? Yeah, actually, I loaded the Wikipedia page up on my phone so I can read from it.
I think part of the answer is if we didn't do it now, we certainly weren't going to do it 10 years from now. So...
The records. Oh, all right. I'm sitting far away. And the records are being reissued next year. I think the vinyl versions have been out of print for a while. So for next, is that supposed to be a secret? No, I don't think so. Right?
Too late now.
For next record store day, which is in April, the two records are being reissued as like a quadruple LP sort of thing. And so we thought it would be cool to see what it felt like to play again, and maybe to play around when the records came out. And we still get a lot of emails and stuff from people who are apparently fans, and many of which were not even alive or close to being not even alive when we played last. So
certainly didn't meet the age limitations of the venues.
No, considering it was more, they were like 2 or 3 or something. But yeah, so. And, I don't have anything else to say.
I think another part of the issue was we had talked about doing this for a long time, and part of the issue was just logistics. Like, this isn't the kind of band you can get together and have 3 rehearsals and then just kind of fake it.
No,
so it was a matter of blocking out like a huge amount of time, which, is increasingly unrealistic the older we get. So that was a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got invited to play the Thrill Jockey 15th anniversary. And so that was, I think, where it started, where we're like, oh, maybe we were even invited to do the 10-year, but we were like, oh, let's try to do it, and we couldn't get our
stuff together.
Good save.
Yeah, so, and then we were like, oh, maybe we'll wait till the 20th, and then this sort of seemed like a better plan than to wait another 5 years. So,
is the idea of this going to be sort of a one-shot deal, or is it going to be maybe the starting point for another tour, or the starting point is it sort of we'll see what happens at the show, and if it goes well?
I think we should have talked about all this before this interview. I'm beginning to think. Yeah, I think it's probably the second one.
Okay.
No, this show is just sort of, is obviously, since it's the first one, it's kind of a big deal. So we're trying to make it as fun and as good as possible. And then we have vague plans to maybe play a few more closer to when the record gets reissued. Just because there's some really crazy people who are going to fly or drive here. And so that made me it encouraged me to let them know that perhaps it would be easier for us to go to Chicago than them coming here.
All the way over here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are, I personally, being someone who has flown vast distances to see shows, there is something in that aesthetic of, well, if you don't catch it now, you might never catch it. And even if you do end up going to Chicago later, there's something about the first show which is kind of special. And
I definitely left it. I was like, I can't 100% guarantee that you'll have another chance. So if you're really, truly worried. But, we have a bunch of friends. We stopped playing before we got to do a lot of things that we wanted. So we have a lot of friends in Japan and places that I would feel not just bad, but I would feel so much pressure to be good that it would be too much pressure. So I was like, we need to address that some other way. So,
well, what was it like going and revisiting the material? I mean, did you end up at certain points saying, "I hate my younger self for inflicting this on me now"? Or
that's a good question.
That is a great question. And I don't even know where to start with that. But the way that I've been describing it to people is, it's sort of like, take an outfit that you wore 15 years ago and put it on, like today. It's an outfit that you picked 15 years ago, so clearly you liked it at one point, but it's not exactly the outfit you would have chosen to wear today, right? Like time has passed. Maybe you're a little fatter. Maybe you're, balding, whatever. Like, there are things that are more or less flattering to who you are today. But that being said, it's not like I'm being asked to put on a clown suit. Like, it was an identity that was part of me. So that's my personal take on it.
I'd like to point out right now that Eric once compared this reunion to having sex with someone you used to go out with 15 years ago, except with a whole room full of people watching you do it.
That is the other metaphor, yeah.
Whoops. The top of the microphone.
But I should say that I've done a lot of gay porn since then, so my attitudes have changed.
So it's easier now.
Open-minded. Yeah, I was in San Diego, and I realized that I didn't even have the recordings, and Eric had them in his car, and he handed me the CDs, and I listened to them, and we both, having not heard them, let alone played them, were like, this is really schizophrenic music. I don't remember 90.9% of any of this. And when did we actually think this was a good idea? 0.9. We are math rock, right? Yeah. Yeah, there'll be a quiz on that one later. But I was shocked at how I didn't really recognize it. So it's also, I've continued to play music, and we all have been involved in music ever since. There wasn't really a break in it, and you just incrementally start to grow away from what that was, or what that was important at that time. And Eric and I were going to this university here at that time period when we met, and we're kind of fresh out of music class, and we were probably trying to
rebel against music class.
Yeah, and take a little bit of that and try to build from there. But that doesn't really seem relevant necessarily to me. But now, after spending hundreds of hours with that material and playing it over and over again, the suit is beginning to fit again, and I like it.
Is there a sense memory? I mean, playing the music, does it sort of bring you back to when you were first playing it, or?
Yeah, sort of to your last question, there is a lot of that just came back immediately, but there's also a lot of realizing that, this song does this thing 11 times, then 29 times, then 17 times, and then why would we do that? Why did we do that then, and why are we having to figure it out all over again?
A lot of cussing out our 22-year-old self. What? Yeah. I want a time machine and change that, but no.
Go back and grab yourself by the collars and just kind of give yourself a good shaking.
But I'd say 50% of it came back pretty naturally, but there was a lot of what we did relied on sort of this weird natural chemistry, and so the songs were really amorphous and would be different every time, and they would just be based on sort of feel and vibe and stuff, and so that's kind of harder to cram for. You know, it's easy to learn parts, but to try to get that dynamic back, that's sort of been the most challenging, I think.
Well, given that all of you have gone on and still are doing music, and have continued to do music, are you finding yourself taking the last 15 years worth of music that you've done and applying it in a certain way to the old A minor 4 stuff, or are you basically trying to recapture what it was?
For me personally, a lot of the stuff that I've done subsequently involved a lot more proper singing. So I've definitely tried to take a 2013 approach to that. Other than that, it's a little bit apples and oranges. The mindsets and the aesthetic are so different that it's hard to totally tell. I think I would hope that I'm a little more polished than I was then in terms of my playing. But that being said, some of the stuff we did back then was so complicated that I'm not sure it's possible to do it very polished, you know.
I'm coming from exactly the opposite perspective. I spent the last 10 years, as the rest of the band can vouch for, playing as sloppily and breaking as much stuff as I could, and not worrying about getting the right note as much as if I should stop standing on this table now and I should walk back to the amplifier. Experience, and I did a number of tours with bands that were much more of that ilk, and this feels really different to me to watch my fingers so that they go to the right place on the neck. It's incredibly different.
Imposing structure on John Trevor Benson.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd say probably for this first show, it's mostly, since it's it's the first show, we're playing all old songs. We haven't done too, other than the natural integration of what's been going on. We haven't tried too much to sort of do anything other than try to make the old songs sound really good and be fun to play and stuff. And also I'm really sensitive to when you go see a band, especially an old band that you like, when they're like, all right, we're going to play all new songs tonight. And you're like, no. In fact, this, I always like to use Dio as an example when I can. So last time Dio played here, he had some terrible concept album about dragons and stuff, and they were going to play the whole album all the way through. But before they played, he was like, we're going to play this new album, but don't worry, afterwards we're going to play all the songs you want to hear later. So
stick around.
Yeah, so he was like, don't worry.
So everyone left for 60 minutes and then came back for the...
And that's what killed him.
Oh, too soon.
He was killed by a dragon. I know that for a fact.
Well, yes. So what was the process of picking from the catalog of what to play for the first show? How did you decide which A minor forest was actually going to be on the block?
Yeah.
I mean, basically.
It was a little bit haphazard. I don't think we had an official policy, but there definitely are things where I heard it and I was like, oh, I'm not sure I can scream that way anymore, like that kind of stuff. So there were some things that were a little bit hard for me to metabolize, but for Andee, no problem. So
Andee can still scream the same way.
Consideration that you can't scream like that either. They're like, oh, those 3 songs, we have to play those. You just have to figure it out. I've had very little call to scream like a 25-year-old in the last 15 years.
I'm sorry.
Well, lately I have, unfortunately. But yeah, and we asked a couple of people who were big fans at the time, like what songs they would be excited. And there were a couple songs that we knew we would play, and
that you would be killed if you didn't play.
And
it's all the hits.
Yeah. And I have Stalker that has lots of opinions on what we should play, but we shouldn't talk too much about it. Really, we shouldn't.
If you have to join us, this is KALX Berkeley 90.7 FM. We are talking about A Minor Forest, who are going to be playing on the 9th over at the bottom of the hill, along with Barn Owl. And is that just it? The two of you?
2 bands, short and sweet.
We have some of the old catalog. We were listening to. Should we grab something else from that same CD, or should we?
Probably.
All right.
What do you guys want? Balloons?
Sure.
Or one of the vocal ones. Andee, help me here.
Balloons.
Okay.
Number
3.
Number 3. This is A Minor Forest here on KALX Berkeley. the wrong track. Not balloons.
I don't even recognize that song.
I don't recognize that song either. It's that's a deep cut. That's early.
It is KALX after all. Yeah, all deep cuts.
All deep cuts here.
You are listening to KALX Berkeley 90.7 FM. We are talking with members of A Minor Forest who are going to be playing over at the bottom of the hill on Saturday the 9th. I don't know if I should maybe mention this story, but John, you were telling me about the very first rehearsal that you guys had together, which was, well, you can just get together and see what happens, and then at the end, all of you looking at each other going,
I've already blocked that.
Yeah. And just sort of the, I don't know if it's the realization of where you had been or how far you had gotten, even up to 15 years ago, and sort of the, I don't know, maybe the realization of the complexity of what it was that you were doing 15 years ago?
Oh, you mean the first rehearsal of the recent
stuff.
The recent
yes.
getting to, yeah, that's right. The realization of how hard these songs are kind of hit us, and how much work it's going to be. And we have put hundreds of hours into rehearsal, so it's coming together. And we just this morning had a rehearsal that went really well, so I think we're feeling pretty good about it. But the previous rehearsal to the most, we would have said otherwise.
One of the other things about Minor Forest stuff is that it's, I mean, we've been listening to a lot of the rock stuff, but there's a lot more sort of other atmospheric, and there's a lot of different kinds of textures that the history of the band has gone through. Are you going to be primarily focusing on the rock, or is there going to be more of the stranger stuff that's going to enter into the show at the bottom of the hill?
I think there's a decent mixture of like louder and mellower bits, but I think it there's a limit to the threshold of what an audience will tolerate in terms of a set length. So we're not going to get to everything. So
Leonard Cohen can play for 3 hours. Why can't Amanda Forrest play for 3 hours?
Can and should.
Yeah, I would love to see Leonard Cohen play for 3 hours. That's okay with it. Minor Force is another story.
This is so unrelated, but as long as we're talking about set length, I don't think I was with you guys, but remember that band, The Orchid from San Diego? Mm-hmm. Like Screamo band. They, the last time I saw them, they spent like an hour setting up, like no joke, just like, and they had carpets and candelabras and all this stuff on stage, and then they played for like 9 minutes. And it was like 15 songs, but it was like 9 minutes, and then it took them 45 minutes to break down. And I was like, that was the most perfect show I've ever seen. It was like performance art. It was incredible. So that's sort of what we aspire to, although we missed it by about 60 minutes.
So you're going to play one song at the bottom of the hill.
Exactly.
That's the idea.
And the rest of the time setting up.
There was it was Miranda Sex Garden and Reichers and the Neubauten were touring together. I saw the Miranda Sex Garden opened, and then at the very end of the Miranda Sex Garden show, suddenly there was a member of Neubauten on stage, and then a member of Miranda Sex Garden dropped out, and then they kept on switching. I thought, this is going to be great. It's actually going to be a crossfade. And then they stopped the song, and then it took another hour for Neubauten to actually come back on stage and set everything up. You missed the perfect opportunity to do a fantastic crossfade, but no. I think Neubauten are famous for being long on the setup, I suppose we should say.
Yeah. Well, I'd say 50% of our rehearsing has been sorting out those sorts of problems. We're working with a very 1990s analog setup.
Yeah, not only did somehow we managed to have almost all of our original equipment, we have our original roadie in the studio with us right now at this moment, who just ran and grabbed a CD from one of our cars, fulfilling the role.
Yes.
James.
Hi, James.
Hello.
It's one microphone amongst 4 people now.
Well, we probably actually shouldn't stay too much longer because Matoki is generously letting us have her time in this time slot, and she's going to be coming in maybe 10 minutes or so to take you up until 6 o'clock. We do have some tickets to give away for the show, and you said you had a trivia question.
I do. I wanted to play something on the air. I also wanted to say that we managed to get this show to be 18 and up.
No, it's all ages.
It's all ages. Oh, fantastic.
Even
and
better.
I'm incredibly nervous because my daughter's going to be there with her boyfriends, and she's never seen this band being...
And related to the thing we were talking about earlier, the reason it's all ages is because some 19-year-old girl emailed me, and she lives in Seattle, and she bought a plane ticket, and then found out it was 21 and up. And she was
Right.
And she emailed me to see if we could sneak her in.
And we said, yeah, sure, we can sneak her in. And then we started to think about it.
So we made it,
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a lot of reasons to be very nervous at this show. So I'm particularly nervous about my daughter being there. And
Because she's 6.
she's 18 now. She's 18
yes.
now,
So-
which, yeah.
So she was 3 when the last show happened.
Yeah, I guess technically. But in spite of it being all ages, I expect there to be a lot of gray hair in the audience, and I'm hoping so because I've got a lot of gray hair as well. And we just had a party at my house where I think everybody there was about 20, so I would love to be in that environment again. But yeah, I wanted to play something on the air as part of the trivia question for the tickets, and anybody that can guess what this is got to be over 35. And I'm guessing that not many people will be able to figure out what it is, but I was going to play this sound.
God.
This is all John, by the way.
These are
We didn't get a warning about this.
Okay, here it is. Did that come through?
Yep.
I know what it is.
Well, of course you know what it is.
You already have a ticket to the show, though.
Okay, if anybody can guess what I just played is, they can get a pair of passes to the Bottom of the Hill show.
510.
Really, let's say even if you can't figure out what that is.
510-642-KALX, 642-5259. A pair of tickets to go and see A Minor Forest and Barn Owl over at the Bottom of the Hill on Saturday the 9th. 510-642-KALX. John, Eric, Andee, James. Thank you all very, very much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Today.
Yeah, thank you.
Since the CD was run to we ran to the van to get the CD. Do you want to introduce this last track that we're gonna have?
Yeah, this is one of the tracks that we'll actually be playing at our show, and it's called So Jesus Was at the Last Supper.
A Minor Forest. Thanks for listening. Minoki's coming up next.